Welcome everyone to episode 8 of Anime Figure Archive. I'm Kohai and I'm sorry I've been gone so long. Work has been absolutely draining my life and I'm very burnt out. But you know what does give me life? Cat girls, especially small cat girls. Today we have the Little Cheshire from Azure Lane, made by Onigame. She is a 1/6 scale with MSRP of 22,000 yen and she was released in December of 2024. If by the end of this video you're looking to pick her up, she is still currently available on AmiAmi New for MSRP. Or if you're looking to pay a little bit less and you're okay with secondhand, she is available on AmiAmi Pre-Owned for slightly less at 19,980 yen. And she's still an Item A and a Box B. Little Cheshire is just the child version of Adult Cheshire, which we can see here, and she definitely grew up into Big Cheshire. Because she has big titties, get it? You could only obtain her in-game through an event called a Cookie for Mew, and she would only permanently join your fleet once you gained enough cookie points. Here we can see a picture of what she looks like in-game and all of the extremely adorable faces that she can make, so I'm really glad they were able to include at least 3 faces in the figure. She's a heavy cruiser from the Royal Navy. There are child versions of several of the characters, and a few have been made into figures. We have Little Illustrious, who's currently on AmiAmi Pre-Owned for 6,980 yen. Amagi-chan, who's currently sold out on AmiAmi. And finally, Shinano-chan, whose pre-orders are currently sold out on AmiAmi. So interestingly enough, Amagi-chan and Shinano-chan are both from the Sakura fleet, and they're both called Chan, whereas Little Illustrious and Little Cheshire are both from the Royal Navy, and they're both called Little. I currently own all of the child versions that are out and have also pre-ordered Shinano. So I'm super excited to show you guys Little Cheshire as she immediately captured my heart with her cuteness. Here's a quick look at the box and the dimensions are on screen. And here's a quick look at the figure itself with the dimensions also in the bottom of the screen. Initial impression, she is extremely adorable. But for being little, she sure does take up a lot of space. I do appreciate that they made her dress look like a tail, but you're definitely going to have to make space for her in your collection. Overall, I am extremely impressed with the paint, so let's take a closer look. Starting with the hair, we can really only see the bangs and the underside, which are both a dark gray. And then we have this blue highlight on her bangs here, which is very distinctive to her character. They have given us 2 bands of highlight on the top and on the bottom of her bangs. For the ear headdress, they have added a black airbrushing in all of the frills and in the creases of the bow. They did not add any shading for the bell, but they did use a nice gold paint. On the other side of her ears, we can see this gold detailing here. This line work appears to be a decal, as we can see where the line meets up top, and that all of the stitching is hand-painted. It's mostly in the lines, although also a little bit inconsistent, but it does make it look like real stitching. Moving down the headdress, it does appear that they've actually added in blue airbrushing into the folds of the fabric instead of just airbrushing white over a dark plastic. All of this line work here at the bottom appears to be a decal. Looking at the side of the dress, we can see where they really added this blue airbrushing where there's stitching and the fabric bunches together. For the bow of her tail, there is again black airbrushing in all of the creases, and again the bell has no shading, just a gold paint. On the back of the dress, we see the same techniques used, where there's shading in the frills and within the wrinkles of the train. Moving on to the front of the dress, we see more shading on the sleeves here and here. For the manju, there's no shading in its headdress. These red lines for the ribbon are printed, and the feet are hand-painted. They go a little bit out of the lines. The eye decals are set nicely, and they're in this cute little shocked face. For her little purple apron, this gold ribbon here is definitely added back in. These are hand-painted but do look acceptable, and once again we see shading in the frills. For the arm ribbons, we have a gold clasp here, and we do see bands of shading here. The stockings have a cute little gold clasp here that's within the lines. We see some tan shading throughout the stockings to make them look more see-through. This band of the shoes is possibly a decal, as we can see where the lines meet together here, and then we have these gloss black shoes. As mentioned earlier in the video, she does come with 3 faces, so let's go over them. This is her happy, excited face. She's showing you the manju. She's very excited to do so. The eye decals are set nicely. Her tongue is painted pink, and she has this cute little snaggletooth that's painted white. This is the pouty face. We have a little bit of blush here. The eye decals are set nicely, and then we have a little squiggly line where her lips are pursed together. And lastly, we have her little sobbing face. The eye decals are set nicely. The tears are also decals. I do wish that they were 3D. Her tongue is painted a pink, and this time her little snaggletooths are just a skin tone. On the collar, we don't see any shading, but we do have some line work here, and it does go a little bit out of the lines. Overall, for the paint, I do think Onigame has done a good job here. They're shading in almost every single element. The dress takes up a lot of PVC, but they did take the time to add shading and all of the wrinkles and folds and stitching of the fabric. Most of the line work is clean. Some of that is due to decals or pieces added back in, but I do think it's above average, so I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Moving on to the sculpt, and by that we mean modeling, fit, and finish. While there are a few areas that could use some more details, and there's a couple of fitment issues, they did add a lot of detailing into her dress, and there's very little flashing. Starting with the hair, if you look at the enhanced photo, we can see that they've added the 2 side pieces of her bangs in, creating a little bit of a seam. Then we also have a section for her bangs, which does have an appropriate amount of detailing. We really can't see any other sections of her hair due to this headdress that she's wearing. Speaking of the headdress, we'll start with this front part here, which is really the only section I need a lot more detailing. It's very basic. This is also the only section that has flashing, which is going to be right here. Taking a look at the side of the headdress, we can see all of the frills of the inside of the ears here, and there is a decent amount of detail. The bell is pretty simplistic, but as we move to the bows, they've added lots of dips and wrinkles in the fabric, giving the ribbons a lot of movement. Looking at the back of the headdress, I do think they've added an appropriate amount of wrinkles, and it's also splayed out and slightly up, so it makes it look like she's running towards you. Looking at the side of the dress, they did a really nice job of layering it, so the dress has a lot of volume, and they did so with minimal seams. We do see a little bit of a seam here, where the apron does meet the dress. I do think the fabric here does look very thick, but they did do a nice job with the frills on the bottom of the dress. Again, on the back, we see appropriate folds throughout, all really curving to the section, which is her tail. Taking a look at the other side of the dress, again from this angle, the frills look very thick. But if you start to turn the dress, then what they're really doing is playing on that modeling to give a lot of shadows and depth to make the frills have a lot of volume. For the tail, again, we have a bell with very minimal detailing. We do have some wrinkles in the bow here. And they again chose a very thick modeling of the fabric for the bow. There is a small seam on the tail here since the fitment for the tail to the dress is not very good. For the poofy sleeves, we again see appropriate wrinkles. There is a tiny bit of a gap between the cuff and the sleeve. And something I forgot to mention in paint, but her fingernails are painted with a slight glossy pink, and her fingers are modeled well. For the manju, we have minimal detailing, but we do have some wrinkles in the bows, the frill of the headdress, and the little frills inside the ears. His eyes, beak, ribbons, and feet are all modeled into his body, and they're not separate pieces, making them look a little less realistic, but you don't get all those seams. For the apron, again, we see all of these nice wrinkles and folds, particularly around the stitching. For the metal details of her dress, they look about as good as they can without it being actual metal. For the ribbons, the clasps do have average detailing, but they could be more defined. The clasp on the white ribbon is supposed to be in multiple pieces, but it is just in one piece here. I do like how the ribbons fit underneath the dress, and so they bow out, giving them that dimension, but be careful about moving them because they could potentially scratch your paint. The gold clasp of the stockings are not very detailed, and they are modeled into the stockings, making them look less realistic. The tops of the stockings do look good. We have the chubbiness of the thigh, little wrinkles where her knees are, and the shoes are very cute, although they don't have as much detailing as they should. For the face, this time we'll start out with the cute little crying face. Again, I do wish the tears were a clear 3D piece because they would have looked more realistic. But the mouth is modeled in nicely, and so the tongue is 3D. The fangs look a little less realistic because they're modeled into the skin instead of being a separate piece, but this is what the artwork looks like. Now, they made her face a lot more square than it is in the artwork. In the artwork, it's very round, and so they made her cheeks a lot chubbier. Moving on to the pouty face, for me, depending on the angle, it almost kind of just looks like that she's eating something and her mouth is full. It doesn't help that you can't really see her eyebrows due to her bangs, but I do feel like they could have cinched her mouth up a little bit more or actually made her cheeks a little bit chubbier, but closer to her mouth. This is also kind of a note about paint, but I do wish they would have added a lot more blush, and I think it would have made the face a lot more believable. And lastly, we have the cute little smiling face. The mouth is really well done in this face. We have the cute little cat lips, her little snaggletooth, and the mouth is actually modeled in the roof of the mouth. And so the tongue is a lot more 3D, making it look very realistic. And underneath, they've given her pantaloons so she's protected from creeping. To summarize the sculpt, while I would have added some more details to a few things, they paid a lot of attention to the dress, adding many wrinkles and frills throughout, adding a lot of movement to the figure. The finish is excellent. There are very few seams, so I do think that it's above average, so I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. The best thing about the base is that you don't need it. She can stand on her own, she's pretty stable, and this is definitely how I'll be displaying her because otherwise we're back to the cheap plastic, at least not super ugly base. It at least has some kind of purple abstract design, but it doesn't have any support structure underneath. It's also huge and takes up a very large footprint in order to support this tailpiece. I still feel like they could have made it smaller. I'm definitely not going to display her with it, so I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5, only because it at least has some kind of design on it. This figure is based off of an artwork, which you can see up on screen, and my first question is, where is the butthole on my bird? There is no butthole on the bird in this figure. To be fair, in the artwork, he is leaning backwards, whereas in the figure, he is sitting straight up, and so you couldn't necessarily see his butthole, but it's still very important to me. I guess we could also talk about this adorable balloon rigging, which we also do not have in the figure, obviously. It's very adorable, but it would be very expensive, so I understand why they didn't include it. Taking a closer look, we can see this fleur de lis, or a floral pattern, on her headdress, as well as the train of her dress, which is not present in the figure in either location. We can also see this rhinestone detailing in the shoes, which we do not see in the figure. Other than the fact my chicken, Manju, he's basically a little chicken, doesn't have a butthole, and the other fact that this little girl looks like she's about to break a leg. This face is telling me, hey, Commander, I brought you a present. Please accept it. She's very excited to see you, very happy. She's running towards you. It's very adorable. Meanwhile, this face is very pouty, or almost tsundere-like, and you really can't see it in the photo, but the chicken's giving you a little bit of a side eye. So it's almost like she's saying, it's not like I like you or anything, Commander, but I made you this present, so you might as well accept it. But in the figure, this doesn't quite translate to me. Again, you can't really see her eyebrows because of her bangs, and it kind of just looks like she has food in her mouth. And so I do wish that this face would have had some more blush, and that her mouth was cinched in a little bit more, because I think it would have really sold the face a lot more. And for the last face, I actually have these three up on screen since they go together. At the top, she's so excited that the manju flies out of her hand, and then she's shocked because he's gone. And then in the last panel, it's so sad because she's heartbroken because the manju is dead, the spirit has left his body. Whereas in the figure, you don't really get that story. You can't change the manju out for a separate one that has X's for eyes. And so for me in the figure, the face tells the story of, Commander, why aren't you accepting my gift? You've made her heartbroken, is extremely sad. She's just a small little bean. In summary, this figure is extremely adorable. She really captured my heart, and she makes me go through a roller coaster of emotions with each different face, but there are a few inconsistencies with the artwork, and I don't feel like they quite captured her face since it's more square than round, and they did make her cheeks a lot chubbier than they're supposed to be, but she does look like little Cheshire, so I'm gonna give her an average score of a 3 out of 5 for artistry. For 22,000 yen, you get a very clean figure with 3 different faces, and she is around the average price point for a 1/6 scale. On one hand, it's nice that we have a 1/6 scale because it means we get more PVC for our money. But on the other hand, it's a little jarring because she's supposed to be this cute little petite cat girl. And so I almost feel like she would be cuter if she was smaller. And because she is larger, it makes it more difficult for you to display her with other figures in your collection, especially if you were to display her next to adult Cheshire. And so I feel like it's really just personal preference. And so I'm going to give her an average score of a 3 out of 5 for value. But because she's still in stock on AmiAmi, I would definitely keep an eye on her to see if she goes on sale so you can get more value for your money. For certifications, the small bean is very wholesome and not for looting. There's an adult bean for those purposes, and so the small bean demands 3 things. You must die for the bean, provide snackies for the bean, and protect the bean. All in all, I'm very glad I have this figure in my collection. It immediately captured my heart right when it went up for pre-order, and I'm definitely going to display her with the sad little crying face because it tugs at my heartstrings every time I see it. I have to admit, I am a crazy cat lady, and I will be adding this little bean to my collection of cats. That's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm Kohai. See you next time.